Yeah, live, yeah.
Okay, was not expecting that.
Oh,
Hi,
come
everybody.
on. We had to
Good to
really
meet y'all.
convince her
Which
last
camera?
night to come on.
That one's live.
This one right here, yes.
All right.
The little one
Okay.
in the middle. There we go.
Thank you.
All right.
What are we talking about today?
Raputya.
We're talking about Raputya.
Yes, we haven't had you guys on the podcast yet. So tell
I
us about Raputya. What do you guys do?
A lot is probably, and it's going to be difficult to cram everything in, but we're primarily a Japanese warehouse robotics company, and we spun out of ED Zurich in 2014.
Okay.
Today we have customers like Nippon Express and Sagawa Logistics that we count, who count on us actually to not just 2x but 3x their productivity. Some of our well-known products is a Pick Assist AMR, but we're also coming with an autonomous forklift and then very soon fully flexible ASRS. I think what sets us apart as a company.
Fully flexible.
Fully flexible.
What does that mean?
Think of it as like the IKEA, where you go and you build it yourself.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
That's very interesting. Think of it like very modular.
Yeah.
And think of it as almost like a Lego block. So you can build it however high, no nuts, no bolts whatsoever.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I got to see that.
You got to see it. I promise you.
Yeah.
When you're done, happy birthday, and I'm going to show it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so no nuts, no bolts, and then you can
build it however high you want.
Adjust however you want.
Wide you want it.
Yeah.
When you're done, maybe like people who rent out a warehouse, right? Like an absolutely bare warehouse with no racking at this point.
Yeah.
And you just feel like, okay, hey, I want to be in this warehouse for like maybe a couple of months, maybe a year. So you get in there, you build it up. When you're done, you pack it all up. Like I said, no nuts, no bolts. You're not worried about little screws and little packets.
Yeah.
And you just pack it all up. You just have the sheets and then the modular base that goes in, and then you take it off to another warehouse and set it up all over again.
Oh wow, that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
So I think like that's with all our products, right? There's a lot of empathy that has gone into building what we do. Like with the Pick Assist robot, we're probably the only one that has a retractable tray, because we noticed that a lot of people had to still bend or try to fit in like a really big product into the lower shelf. So the best way to do it would be to just have a little open tray button. It pops out. You put a bigger tote. You can fit a bigger product and then push it back in. So I would say like there's a lot of thought process behind what the end user, and for us an end user is not just a DC owner, but it's also the people who are picking or working with our
doing
robots.
the work. Yeah, interesting.
They're actually doing the work.
Yeah. I think that's such a, I mean, just the tray aspect in itself, I mean, it's telling of the thought process behind your products and solutions, because you're thinking about those little things. And like you said, I mean, you know, there are, you know, other robots out there, and you see they have the bottom tray, and you certainly are like, you know, bending over trying to get them out. And especially if they're heavier items, like you mentioned, you know, you have to make that lift. You know, bringing them out to a position where you can make a more ergonomic lift is certainly a lot better way to do that. So you said you're primarily in Japan, but you guys are expanding throughout the globe, right? So tell us a little bit about the expansion and how that's going, and especially into the Americas now as well, right? So talk to us about that.
Sure. I think it's been an interesting journey for us. We started out in 2014, but then we pivoted. And I think we've actually had the Pick Assist robot only since 2020.
Yeah.
Live in over 50 sites in Japan. And then, like I said, we count Nippon Express as one of our anchor customers there for a very, very long time, and we've had great success with them. In fact, let me tell you that one of the shifts that they run have people in the age group picking with an age group of 55 to 75. Because
75, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
because that's how easy it is to work with our robots, right? And the robot is constantly optimizing for what's the most optimal path to pick. They're also optimizing for what is the time the worker is taking to complete a task and to walk from one point to the other. So our algorithms are constantly optimizing for how can we get this product out the door faster.
Right.
We come with a printer integration, right? So once you put your tote on it, or your shipping container, or the box that it needs to go out into, think of it as a pick, pack, print, out the door. We're trying to make that a total solution within the robot itself. We were funded by Goldman Sachs last year, who led our Series C funding. And hence we're here now in the United States. We've been making some good inroads. We've spoken to very interesting customers. We already have our first two, and we're expanding shortly. We're headquartered now out of Chicago.
Yes.
And we like it so far. We have, I think what we bring to the market is very different from what the United States is already used to.
Okay.
There are certain problems that are there in Japan that are not here in the United States, but we see them probably coming or happening down the line, right? So, for example, land crisis is a big deal in Japan.
Right. Okay.
Hence, everything goes vertical.
Yes.
Hence, the ASRS that needs to be flexible to go up, right? Our robots as well, like if you give me 5 feet wide aisle widths, I'll have 2 robots seamlessly pass each other. Okay. The most narrow space within which they can work is 3 feet. So I know that while these problems do not exist in the US right now, slowly, given the rate at which warehouses are slowly expanding, going out to maybe more crowded metropolitans even, to make sure that the product gets out to the customer faster, you're going to start getting some of these problems coming in. We also love doing simulation as a service. So we take your data and we run it through a simulation, and then we'll tell you what is the most optimal human to robot ratio that you need to have. Like what is the number of humans that you would still have on the floor doing the picking, and how many robots should you have. So we've had great success with this because we're able to make more data-driven decisions for our customers and for ourselves when we're getting into the market.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and certainly be able to see that simulation, especially when, I'm sure you run into people that are just looking at robotics for the first time or automation in some sense. Being able to give them some idea of what is that going to look like actually in my operation, right? Like how is that going to function? How is that going to work? Certainly goes a long way, I think, to being more comfortable, I guess, with adoption, right, of robotics and automation, and really understanding like where are those improvements going to happen. So it's interesting too that you guys are seeing some of these issues in Japan already that will potentially be issues here additionally. And I think it's interesting you touched on getting those facilities closer to more crowded, more populous metro
more urbanized
areas, right?
Exactly. The more metropolitan and the closer you're going to get to that, the more you're going to have to compromise on space.
Yeah, and
because
if you can
space
go up,
is a great asset. So you either go vertical, or you go smaller. Right. So if you go smaller, then how do you have automation? That like traditional automation that we're used to typically would take up a lot of space. So imagine like really big conveyors running in and out, huge sortation systems. Those are big, they're heavy, they're legacy, right? You want something that's a lot more flexible, especially if you're a smaller business owner and you want to be a lot more nimble. So I think like one of the things that I love about what our product does is we can work with your existing facilities, your existing racks the way they are. Like we will not have any changes made to those because again, our robots can navigate and they know how to get in between and do their job.
Interesting. So I mean, in that sense, like, what does a kind of startup with Raputya look like? Like, as I say, like, okay, we want to use Raputya. Like, how long does it take to deploy? What does the implementation look like? I mean, how does that go?
Okay, all good questions. I think for us, we've spent a fair amount of time trying to build up a bit of a trust factor because we understand that we're new here. So we do offer on-site demos where we bring our robots out to customers' facilities. So it's your aisles, your products, your shelves, your pickers, your products. What you see is what you get, right? So we've been doing that a lot. But if you remove all of that demo time, etc., we've worked with some of the toughest WMS players in Japan, where the market there for WMS is very fragmented. So we're already used to doing a lot of customizations. We're used to like immediately getting our system to start talking to your WMS. And I feel like the US has actually made that a lot simpler for us because you have certain key players and everybody typically has a WMS for that. And in that case, in that sense, then we can plug it immediately and we can deploy it to go. I mean, if you don't want to go even wait all the way up to having your WMS integrated, you can do something as simple as having an FTP or a CSV file upload. And we can like even run a demo shift for you with just an FTP or a CSV file upload.
Very interesting. And I mean, from a perspective, because we're coming up now, peak season, right? And I mean, at this point, it's too late to plan for peak season. I would say
peak season is upon us.
We're here. We've arrived, right? We're in October. So I mean, how are you guys helping to address like those situations within operations that have like a true defined peak season? Like this fourth quarter is like that's go time for them, and the rest of the 3 quarters are down. I mean, how do you help to manage that capacity for them and leverage resources, whether they need to go up or need to go down?
So I think like one of our core values at our company is empathy. So our customers' problems are our problems. I think we understand that there is going to be, like, when you said peak season is upon us, and I was like, amen, because I know what it's going to be like for end customers. We're really going to have a hard time. So what we're going to do is, when we do the simulation as a service for our end customers, we take into account what a normal, kind of operation looks like and what peak would look like. So we're already advanced planning in some way. We already know that, hey, when peak comes, you might need 5 extra robots or 6 extra robots. We don't determine that. We don't even let you determine that, because there's so much to deal with and cope with at that point. You might not have the bandwidth to be able to think of, like, oh, how many robots do I need to add? So we let the data speak for itself, and we can advance plan and say, all right, we know the last quarter is going to go crazy. We have your 5 or 4 or 6 or 10 robots on standby. You tell us when you want us to bring them over, and they're ready to deploy. Because once you're already on the system, it's as simple as just, adding or subtracting as and when you're done. So we're always happy to support our customers during surge or peak, and then take those robots back when they're done.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And you're doing this through a RAS model, I guess?
Of course we are. So RAS model.
Of course. Okay.
I think that's the best way. I say of course. I know it's more because we see that CapEx is not that easy, especially after whatever happened with COVID, right? Like, COVID was a great teacher in some way for every sort of business out there. I don't think there was any business school, any sort of like supply chain course that you could do that would prepare you for what we went through. Exactly, right, with COVID. So ever since that, you just want to be prepared all the time. So you don't want to invest too much of your money buying hardware and buying technology. The other thing with that, for me personally, that I feel when I talk to companies and I talk about the RAS model, is that hardware is constantly evolving. So that's why every year Apple comes out with a new iPhone, right? Google's out with a new hardware piece as well. Everybody comes out, and you want to be able to trade in. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, we need cell phone as a service. What's going on there?
Yeah, so you have a lease model almost on your phones, right? Or you sell them off and you're trading them in and you're getting a new one. But we don't have a marketplace as yet to sell secondhand robots. You don't. So why have our customer?
There's a business idea right there.
That's a good point, isn't it? We should have one, maybe.
We'll take that offline. We'll take that offline.
That's an idea floating out there right now. But so think of it that you can, when you're done with your lease and you think that, hey, maybe you have a better model, this is good. Or maybe you're done at that particular warehouse. You do not need to be operating out of the warehouse. Your demand is somewhere else. Maybe you need to move to a different city, a different town, a different state. You just pack everything up and you can move, and we'll support you, because then we will just deploy the robots from a different location. You don't even have to physically move them around with you or something.
Absolutely. And I think that flexibility is such a key, especially in the world that we're living in today, and the supply chain, constantly ebbing and flowing, as we saw. You mentioned the pandemic, but even in between that and not having huge events like that, there's still small events that happen in everybody's supply chain that we need to have that flexibility. We need to change things like that. Something goes wrong with a building, you got to quickly pick up and move. Your customer is not going to necessarily understand, right? Because it's not necessarily their problem. They have a problem with your building. If you're a 3PL, you have to still meet that service and make it happen for them, because you want to take care of them. So being able to have that flexibility in your solution providers too, I think that goes a long way as well. So now tell us a little bit about, the pick assist robot is kind of the big focus now, I guess, right? But you have these other ones coming that you mentioned. How will you guys be able to provide almost kind of like a complete offering, or how will they interact with each other?
Sure. I think we've tried to make it like, as I was talking about earlier, right? We can do already the pick, pack, and print. That's one already. Making that entire operation would have been 3 steps. Now you're putting it into a single step, right? You talk about put to light. I think one of the few pick assist AMRs that actually have a put to light solution on it. And this is so important, because we're noticing that there is a trend right now where a lot of companies are struggling with mispicks. They're struggling with the wrong product going out to the customer. I've even heard of like an empty box maybe going out with no product in it. I am not joking.
You didn't order air? You didn't order air?
I'm sorry?
I said you didn't order air?
I didn't order air. What to do? I only wish I did. But, the customer was like, it happened to be an employee who had ordered something, and then they opened the box and found it absolutely empty.
Oh, man.
And the so-called luxury product was not in there. So you want to avoid situations like that, because it's so important. Customers have a variety of options to choose from. And you want to keep that loyalty. You want to keep your end customer loyalty going, right? So you want to reduce the number of mistakes. You want to reduce the number of errors that we're making. So we have a barcode scanner. You have the put to light. You also have the image of what the product looks like popping up front and center on that screen, telling you this is what you need to pick. We're obviously live in multiple languages as well, so we support pickers that might come where English is not their first language, or first choice language, right? And the idea is to try to help them to get better and better and better at it. So when they're paired with the most next optimal robot that is available for picking, that's making great use of their walking time as well. They don't have to walk through aisles, looking for a robot. They don't have to walk through aisles, pulling a cart, really heavy. So you start out your shift, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you're good to go. By the end of by the time you hit the 7th hour, you're pulling 50 pounds. You're pulling a good 60 pounds, right? You start slowing down, you get exhausted. But that's not the case. You want to be able, like I said, if we have pickers in the age group of 55 to 75 who are picking on our robots and enjoying it, you can imagine how interesting it has been. It keeps them busy, keeps them motivated, and whenever they need a break, they're good to leave and then just jump right back in, and they're good to go.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think, you've thought of so many of the different parts that are pain points and tried to address them. And I think I can only see how it can continue to evolve and be able to address more of those pain points that we feel as, operations and operators, and be able to really help us to provide better service levels and just provide better work environments overall, which I think is the ultimate key. So very interesting stuff to learn about Raputya from you, Alysha. And, Raputya, as you mentioned, is now expanding into the United States as well. So tell us a little bit about how can people learn more about Raputya. If they want to get in touch, how can they do that?
We're very active on LinkedIn. We're trying to be active on LinkedIn. Not as good as you, but we are. We're getting there.
Okay. Yeah.
You can find me. You can look us up on our website. I know it's a mouthful, but it's Raputya, which is Rapyuta, and the name actually comes. It actually means castle in the sky. The origins are in anime, which actually means castle in the sky, and it's the story of 2 orphan children that want to go home, and all of these robots eventually lead them to the master robot in the sky. So what we're known for is our cloud robotics, and that's originally where our inception was. Yes.
Gotcha.
So with the castle in the sky, our cloud robots, we have the patent of the global patent for multi-robot route planning, so you can see it all tied in. But definitely find us on LinkedIn. Find me up on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to you. Definitely mention that you heard me on Kevin's podcast. And that's what got you to talk to me, and then we can have an even more productive conversation from there.
Yes. So thank you so much for coming by and teaching us all about Raputya and the great solutions you guys are offering.
Thank you for having me, and have a very happy birthday.
Hopefully we'll see you in a 3PL near us soon, right?
You're going to see us in more 3PLs very soon.
Definitely, yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.